lesbians life and caregiving. So because we want more audience to come, so we will wait for 5 minutes to open. So just please wait a moment. So because we want more audience to come, so we will wait for 5 minutes to open. So just please wait a moment. So more audience to come, so we will wait for 5 minutes to open. So just please wait a moment.我可以帮你。Well, thank you for joining our session. And this session, the topic is called Senior Lesbians Life and Caregiving. So let me introduce myself first. So my name is Sichen Du, and you can call me Sham. So I'm the Director of Policy Advocacy in Taiwan同志哈赖Association. And Ha Lai was the first LGBT NGO in Taiwan. So Today, we want to share about the senior lesbians life and caregiving. And why we want to organize this event is because in 2020, online, we published a book of senior lesbian oral history interviews. So from the stories of these senior lesbians who are over 50 years old, the book depicts the courage of surviving the relatively conservative time, and it also highlights the caregiving needs in their later life. The life of senior LGBTQ+ has received little attention, let alone specific issues related to being biological females. Therefore, this forum aims to bring experiences from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Japan to further develop the caregiving work for middle-aged and senior lesbians in Asia. So yeah, I think it's a very rare opportunity for like NGOs and activists, especially in Asia, to discuss about the senior lesbians' life and caregiving issues. So today, we have like 3 groups of speakers who are very great. So first, besides me is Joy Ling, and she is also our member of the Taiwan同志 Highlight Association. And we also have, sorry, okay. So we also have Makiko and Kain from Japan. Hi. Okay, and we also have Denise from Hong Kong. Hi. Yeah, and we also see a lot of friends that we know from different countries. So maybe you can share your situation stories later. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can just type in the discussion column. So we will discuss later. So the order of presentation is that, so Joy will present the first, and then it comes to Makiko and Kain, and then Denise, okay? So let me introduce Joy first. Okay, so Joy is the board member, volunteer of LGBTQ+ elders group, member of Lesbian Elders Oral History Task Force of Taiwan同志 Highlight Association. So today her topic is seeing lesbian elders in Taiwan LGBTQ+ movements. So let's welcome Joy. Can you see our slides? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now it's Joy.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Joy. I act as a board member of Taiwan 同志 Highlight Association, as well as a volunteer of the LGBTQ+ senior working group under Highlight. I'm also one of the authors of Grandma's Girlfriend, which is an oral history of Taiwanese lesbian elders published by Highlight last year. Today, I represent Highlight to share our experience. My topic is seeing lesbian elders in Taiwan LGBTQ+ movement.
Okay.
I'm a married lesbian, and the tall person on the right-hand photo is my wife. Much appreciated to let me share this photo. Okay, in 2019, same-sex marriage was illegalized in Taiwan. If you ever pay attention to LGBTQ+ news in Taiwan, you would know marriage equality is what many people and organizations strive for many years. It is not easy. This is my presentation outline today. First, I will share the situation of middle-aged and elderly lesbians in Taiwan. Second, what does the LGBTQ+ senior working group of 同志 Highlight do? Third, the elderly lesbian oral history project and the things we learned from it. And finally, the conclusion. Although gays and lesbians can marry legally in Taiwan now, many middle-aged or elderly lesbians still face a lot of discrimination and pressure. For example, first, after 1 year of legalizing same-sex marriage, there are 4,021 couples registered, and 69% of married couples are women. It seems that lesbians need marriage more than gays, even though in absolute terms, the number of same-sex marriages is still not big. According to our understandings, lesbians who are still in a closet or not accepted by family are reluctant to get married, especially older lesbians. It is because they come out much less often than younger lesbians. Second, several lesbians told us that they can only register same-sex marriage when they retire. It means that LGBTQ+ people are not equally treated in workplace. Also, data in 2020 shows that Taiwanese women were only paid 86% of men's wages. As a result, women are more economically disadvantaged than men and become more difficult to come out in workplace comfortably. Third, women tend to be major caregivers and must take care of elderly family members, no matter they are single or married. Fourth, many lesbian elders also married heterosexual men due to family expectation and social pressure. Okay, Taiwan is one of the fastest aging societies in the world. Hotline also found out that the young LGBTQ+ people have fears of elders aging or even discriminate against older people. Hence, we set up LGBTQ+ senior working group to deal with these issues in 2005. What do we do? First, in 2010, the group published Rainbow Bus for Elders and recorded life stories of 12 gays who were aged between 55 to 89 years old. The right-hand side of the slide shows the cover of this book. It was the start of advocacy for LGBTQ+ elders within the scope of senior welfare. Second, as we get to know more LGBTQ+ elders, we gradually find out that they seldom participate LGBTQ+ activities and have little chance to interact with younger generation. Therefore, we have started hosting Rainbow Bus for Elders, which is a one-day tour open to different LGBTQ+ generations. The activity aims to help LGBTQ+ people at all ages to know each other better. Thanks to the efforts of many lesbian volunteers, more and more lesbian elders also join this activity over time. Third, in 2005, we started hosting a series of forums called The Story of Time to discuss issues of aging, diseases, and death with LGBTQ+ communities. Fourth, subsequently, we also learned that middle-aged LGBTQ+ people also have issues of work, parents' caregiving, aging, and health. They need a lot of assistance as well. We therefore have organized support groups specifically for gays and lesbians over 35 years old in order to provide companions and help. Fifth, the other important task is that the group also makes a political advocacy alliance with other civil groups such as Awakening Foundation, Taiwan Association of Family Caregivers, and the Taiwan International Workers Association. The alliance focuses on the Taiwan long-term care policy, and we provide the point of view from LGBTQ+ people. The photo shows the forum The Story of Thai held in 2015. We invited a Come-Out lesbian movie director, Wang Xiaodi, who is the second person from the left-hand side. Ms. Wang shared her life story with her deceased partner, and she was 61 years old at that time. In 2015, we already started striving for the right of same-sex marriage and hope more LGBTQ+ people understand the importance of marriage equality. Yeah. Okay. In 2012, we start the Elderly Lesbian Oral History Project. Why do we want to publish the stories of lesbian elders? Because first, in 1990, the first homosexual organization in Taiwan was initiated by a group of lesbians who are at around 50 to 70 years old now. We want to take down their life stories. Second, in 2010, after the publication of Rainbow Bus for Elders, many lesbian friends also asked us whether Hotline has a plan to publish lesbian elders stories. Third, Taiwan has officially become an aged society since 2018. We believe it is necessary to include lesbian elders' opinions in long-term care policies so that they could live with dignity. Fourth, more importantly, some lesbian elders we know are either ill or passed away. We hope to preserve their life stories before it is too late. Okay. In September 2020, we published Grandma's Girlfriend. The book preserves life stories of 17 lesbians who are 55 to 75 years old. The following are what we learned from them. First, there were no words like butch or fan in early days. People usually call lesbians those who wear pants because they usually dress like men. Many lesbians will push their girlfriends to marry men because marriage was everyone's social responsibility. Second, after World War II, because of US military coming to Taiwan, lesbian bars, or called T bars, in Taiwan, and gay bars emerged. Americans also introduced concepts of butch. In Taiwan, we called butch T, which is short for tomboy, and fan, or called P in Taiwan, meaning tomboy's wife in Mandarin. Third, after the lift of martial law in 1987, the women's movement introduced family lands to Taiwan. Family lands transformed Taiwanese recognition of marriage and family. Some middle-aged and older lesbians realized that it is not necessary to get married. In addition, some lesbians identify themselves often in Mandarin, if they are neither consider themselves butch nor fan. Fourth, there is a great diversity among these 17 lesbians due to differences of generations, social classes, and cultural capital. For example, lesbian bars or T bars can be classified into islanders bars or mainlanders bars according to the language they speak. Fifth, popularity of internet also brings new social space to middle-aged and older lesbians. For example, they can network through Line or Facebook. In conclusion, we believe that first, LGBTQ+ movement should provide more resources to middle-aged and older lesbians. Second, LGBTQ+ movement should collaborate with women's movement. Many issues faced by lesbians are the issues of women's rights. Third, LGBTQ+ movement should improve medical and social workers' gender awareness. These efforts will help lesbian elders live in a safe environment free from discrimination in the future through publication, survey, forums, support groups, and continuous advocacy. The hotline hopes to do more for LGBTQ+ elders in Taiwan. This is the end of my presentation, and these are my cats, Miu Miu and Hannah. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions and feedbacks. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Okay, bye, Miu Miu and Hannah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Joy, for your presentation. And now we go to Japan. So our next speaker are Makiko and Kai. But first, let me just say that congratulations to Japan. Yeah. So why I do that is because today we just have very important news in Japan. So the Sapporo courts just have a very important ruling. I think it's the first ruling which is in favor of marriage equality in Japan, right? Yeah, so we hope it's the first step, but it's a very important first step. So we hope there will be more good news. I know that there are already like different cases in like different courts in Japan. So we hope they will all have like good news. Okay, so let me introduce Makiko and Kai. So Makiko is Japanese. Okay, oh sorry. I think please just close your microphone, like for the audience, please just close your microphone. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So let me continue. So Maki is Japanese and Kai is Hong Kong-born Canadian living in Japan, and they are lesbian couples. And Maki loves reading and playing the bass. Kai loves making noise with all sorts of musical instruments. Actually, they met at ladies' rock camp in Tokyo, and they practice yoga for their peace of mind. And recently, they have set up a support group on Facebook called Lila's Life in Tokyo for an international same-sex couple for their legal rights to stay in Japan. And I will share the link in the discussion column later. Okay, so today, Maki and Kai will share the work of Purple Hands, and which is an NGO for LGBTQ+ elders. And they will also share their experiences as the middle-aged binational same-sex couple in Japan. So their topic is senior lesbians' life and caregiving in Japan. So let's welcome Makiko and Kai.
Hi, everyone. Hello. I'm Makiko. I'm Kaien. And we heard about this event from Nagaya-san of Purple Hands. That's him. Thank you for including us, Nagaya-san. Thank you. When he invited us as the speaker for this event on senior lesbians' life and caregiving, almost immediately, our friend, a senior lesbian in Tokyo, came up to our mind. Her name is Tari Ito. She will appear in a short film a few minutes later. So, but first of all, we would like to congratulate May, Sean, Joyce, and everyone and Taiwan Tonji Hotline Association for the publication of the book, which shared 17 senior lesbians' voices. It's really wonderful and meaningful for us to get together to celebrate at this event. We would like to thank you for including us too. So tonight,
it's our pleasure. Thank you.
So tonight, our talk has 3 parts. The first one, we will introduce Purple Hands, and then we will show you the short film, Tari Ito. And finally, we will briefly talk about ourselves. So right now, we are in Purple Hands office right here. And let me tell you something about Purple Hands. I'll share the slides. So Purple Hands was founded in 2013 by Nagayasu-san and his friends. As you know, there are some common aging issues and concerns in the LGBTQ plus community, like nursing care, inheritance, hospital visit, dementia, isolation, dying alone. Also in aging societies like Japan, seniors living and taking care of their aging parents. And also, as Joyce talked about, women are pressured in the family to be married or to be a mother or to be a good wife. It's a similar story here in Japan too. And also women have to suffer from lower wage than men. And also women are expected to be a caregiving too. That's really similar. So now, Purple Hands provides a wide range of services to support LGBTQ plus community so that they can live with dignity throughout their lives. So there are three main activities as shown here: gathering, sharing information, and life support. So there are so many images on the bottom of the slide. That's the flyers of the events or lectures that Nagayasu-san provides. So there are some photos. The number one, Nagayasu-san is giving a lecture focusing on aging and LGBTQ plus issue. And number two is a social gathering. And number three, a gay couple is having their notary document to officialize their relationship. And number four is the dinner gathering. And past year, they also use online technique too. So you can see the screen on the table. And finally, this is the last slide. They sometimes invite experts for study groups. So that's it, the Purple Hands. And now let me give you some idea about LGBTQ plus situations in Japan. In Japan, there is no LGBTQ plus rights at all. No marriage equality. As Sean said, this morning, we just had a symbolic victory at a district court in Sapporo. The first time ruling same-sex couples not being able to marry is unconstitutional. Although it's still a long way to go for the government to implement and legalize marriage equality. Also, no legal framework prohibiting discrimination against LGBTQ+, no LGBTQ+ issue included in the education system. The lesbian community in Japan is not visibly large. Still, there are some local lesbians painstakingly creating network to support each other and to empower each other. The life expectancy of Japanese women is 87 years old, second in the world. By the way, number one is Hong Kong. In Japan, we have access to public nursing care system. However, in general, the public system requires complicated process. Like a guardian has to be a legal family member. So if you live outside of the traditional family concept, the system is not so accessible. Besides, some would be concerned about being outed to the local community, including the government and the caregivers. Now is the second part, the short film Tari Ito. The title is her name, Tari Ito. We call her Tari-san. Tari-san is born in 1951, and she's going to be 70 this year. She's an internationally active performance artist. So some of you might know her. Her performance focuses on women's body, sexuality, violence against women, especially militarization and gender-based violence, such as Japan's military sexual slavery system and the US military violence in Okinawa. Also, after the Tohoku earthquake and Fukushima nuclear power plant accident, she created a performance responding to experiences of people in Fukushima. Tari-san was diagnosed with ALS, a progressive nervous system disease, in 2019, and she is experiencing many changes now. The lesbian community has been supporting Tari-san on multi-levels, including negotiating with the local government to obtain necessary public care services. One of them is Akira-san. You will see Akira-san in the film too. Akira-san is a qualified caregiver and one of Tari-san's caregivers. We really appreciate their time and openness. It's about 7 minutes long. Hope you will enjoy. Sean Peng, could you play the film?
Can you see my screen now?就是他19年的时候被 diagnose ALS 是什么？是渐冻还是什么？反正就是一个那个渐进的一个那个神经疾病，对 ，ALS 是渐冻人，对不对？然后之前好像还有一个什么，对。Sorry. There's no sound. I think so. Can I just play it again? Now it's only 1 minute. Okay. So sorry for that.
分かってます。そうですか。ありがとうございます。はい。そういうところをめきめきとね、ヘルパーさんになってきた。初めはね、はい、ちょっと上手になったみたい。ここは、おトイレのために最近入れたの。今これで、ここはずっと大体、前ここが真っ白だったから、その間トイレだったり。私いつもおやすみなさいって帰るとき。心配で心配。今は本当に大きな変化だから持っていくだけで精一杯。自分がとかまだ全然そこまで行ってないですね。毎日毎日こう新しいことがから対処するので精一杯。今はねパフォーマンスも考えられないんですよ。思ってる。時間がない。エネルギーもないよね。凄まじい。興味だって。何生きてるんですかって。ね、パチパチしちゃうよ、私。はい。腐ってきちゃうね、これから。まだ早いよ、やつには。分かってる。早いよ。早いよ。なんか、深刻に考える。それすらもなんかできない病気についてまた考え出したらもう恐ろしくて考えないようにしてるんでしょうね多分、それよりも今こう実際にどんどんヘルパーさんが増えて何を頼んだらいいんだろうかとかいうことで精一杯。あ、違う。国語を鬼とお母さんに、お茶もあ、お茶もね。これだっけ、はい。はい。はい。はい。いいですか。はい。じゃあ、あげますよ。はい。これぐらいでよろしいですか。はい。お願いします。僕は。持ってくれない人いる前の人向きじゃないんですよ。家族がいて、足りないところをサポートする。でも、多分3時間とかぐらいなんですね。だからそうすると、それ以外にさ、どうするんですかって言って、じゃあどうですかとか、保険だとサポートされない。だから、訪問会の障害者に早く変えたかったんです。教えの子がね、いない。身体障害の人は、視覚障害だけ。あと知的と障害精神だけだったんですよ。で、そんなのって変じゃないって言って、死にかけ合って、 なかなか動かなかったから、陳情するっていうのでした。心配で、まあ、成功したけどね。
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
let me share our thoughts. When we were at her house, we intentionally did not ask specific questions, such as aging as a lesbian. Rather, we waited for her words. What Tari-san said showed us her reality. She said it's been a big change, and she can barely manage everyday life. No time to think about herself, and even avoiding facing the reality. It's too scary to face the reality or the future. She made me think that being there for someone like Tari-san is vital. Just be there as her company. Be there to take action with her. Be there to fight for her rights for proper public nursing care. But in Japan, women's voice is not heard and not treated fairly. Some of the women might just accept the status quo in silence. Tari-san is a very brave person, and she stands up for her right. Our respect to her. And Tari-san and Akira-san might be watching this right now. Big thanks. Okay, finally, we will talk briefly about ourselves.
Okay, so let me change this. Okay, the mic. Maki and I, we're in our early 50s. We've been together for about 5 years now, and we live in Tokyo. Our relationship is not legally recognized in Japan. And on top of that, we have a big concern. It's my visa. I'm not Japanese, and I need a visa to stay in Japan, to be with her, to be with Maki. And this constant fear that I may lose my visa someday, that means that we are not really able to plan our senior life together in the future in Japan. We are sure that there are many international same-sex couples, both in Taiwan and Hong Kong. In Taiwan, we have your marriage equality for all, and it was achieved recently. And then in Hong Kong, we saw news about a visa being granted for one international same-sex couple in 2018, right? But in Japan, no marriage equality, right? But then very strange, actually. In Japan, if you're both foreigners and legally married in your own country, for example, one is Canadian and one is Taiwanese, you can obtain a visa to stay in Japan, and that's called special activities. Now, but when one is Japanese and one is foreigner, sorry, no hope, no visa, nothing. So this is our case. And then actually, recently in Tokyo, one Japanese and one American, an international same-sex couple, they're taking a legal action for their rights to stay in Japan. And we thought, hey, we're on the same boat. So, well, we wanted to do something to show some kind of support in some ways. So Maki and I, we set up a support group page on Facebook, and it's called Lila's Live in Tokyo, as Sean introduced that earlier. Please feel free to check it out on Facebook. Lila, that's Lila. And again, it's called Lila's Life in Tokyo. So finally, we would like to end our talk in solidarity to all human rights defenders seeking freedom and democracy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Makiko and Kain, and also Nakayasu-san. Yeah, it's a really an honor for us to have you for this presentation, and also thank you for bringing us with Tali-san's video. It really shows the reality that when everyone, when we are getting old, when we just face some disability, it's really hard to manage all these situations. So we really need some very urgent public policies to deal with this. And yeah, and also to Makiko and Kain's situation. Actually, I can also share the situation in Taiwan. So actually, although Taiwan, we passed the same-sex marriage in 2019, but for now, because of some restriction of the law, so for transnational couples, one is Taiwanese and the other is foreigner. So we can only for same-sex couple, we can only marry to some foreigners whose countries already legalized same-sex marriage. And because now we only have around 30 countries that same-sex marriage is legalized, so we can only marry people in these countries. Yeah, but Taiwan is the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage, so it means that we cannot marry to any other Asian people. But actually, I have many friends who have been together with Asian people. So yeah, that's still a problem now. Okay, so for our third, but not least, the speaker is Dr. Denise Deng. Okay, so let me introduce Denise. So Denise is assistant professor in cultural studies at Lingnan University and specializing in gender, lesbian sexualities, social spaces, and cultural politics in Chinese societies. Prior to entering academia, Denise worked as a program manager and HIV testing counselor for communities, including LGBTQI, Asian, and Pacific Islander youth, survivors of sexual violence, First Nations women, HIV-affected communities, and youth in juvenile justice system in San Francisco, Seattle, and Vancouver, BC. So today Denise's topic is Now We Hear Them, a qualitative ethnographic study of older lesbian and bisexual women in Hong Kong. So Denise, it's your turn.
Sure, thank you so much for the introduction. And let me play from the start. And also thank you, of course, to Taiwan 同志 Hotline Association for putting this panel together. It's lovely, of course, to see all of you again. And also to meet for the first time, Makiko and Kain and Akira-san, and learn about the work of Purple Hands. And I really appreciate all the solidarity messages, except that we can't say anything here now. So we can only say thank you, for it. So I come from a different perspective, talking about the first two presentations are about service-driven and also about, NGO work. I talk about my research, in this area. I've been doing research on Hong Kong lesbians for a long, long time, for over 10 years and more. So of course, some of the people I used to interview now have become older and have become older lesbians and bisexual women. This project actually is multi-site. So it's Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. But I'll focus on Hong Kong today. I've always, as myself as a lesbian as well, I've always wanted to know how life is, when you become older, of course, right? And of course, I want to find out the relationship between one's sexuality, your same-sex desire, whether you have family obligations, and whether gender roles change when you age, I think. And what we can learn from history. That's why I decided I need to learn more about history, especially these invisible voices, of older lesbians and bisexual women, right? And maybe I will start with telling a story. Actually, a lot of the situation facing the older lesbians and bisexual women in Hong Kong are similar to those in Japan and in Taiwan, So there are difficulties of coming out, a lot of them are also sometimes married to men and all that, right? The difficulties, of course, of coming out as an older woman or as an older lesbian actually has made it quite difficult for me to show you real photos of my informants. So, for example, with Margaret's story, she was born in 1942, so she's now 79 years old. When I interviewed her, she was 76 years old. She started secondary school at the age of 17, really quite late in Hong Kong. And she was from a family of 6. And Margaret was the eldest one from this large family of 6, right? Her mother was very insistent on Margaret being educated, wanting her to become a dentist in the Philippines. But by then, Margaret already has met the one and only partner in her life, in her high school life, during Form 3 when she was only 19 years old in secondary school. She's been with the same partner, Ben, from then until now. So from her age, from 19 years old, all the way to now 79, they've been together. One relationship, very long term, So I asked her, how did it happen? She said that she chased Ben, Ben is her partner. She chased her, wrote a letter to Ben, and Ben read the letter that, Margaret liked her, and then flushed it down the toilet immediately, and then Margaret was very, of course, very determined to chase Ben. So she continued to chase Ben. Now, Ben comes from a very complicated family. Ben actually grew up in Kowloon Wall City, which actually is a lot of gambling dens and a lot of illegal activities, as well as a lot of, you're talking about stories about poverty as well, a very difficult place, a very complicated place. So Ben was the eldest in her family at that time. So for Margaret to be with Ben was actually quite an interesting story because they look like a straight couple. Ben was extremely butch, past as a man, basically. So for Margaret and Ben, they basically never hidden their relationship. They didn't try to be open, deliberately open about it. They just, when Margaret told me, she just thought people can tell by looking at them. One very butch, masculine woman and one feminine woman. Ben looks like a businessman, actually. So when Ben goes to do business in China, people actually call him Mr. Wong, by a masculine name, right? Now, this is the old photo of course, Kowloon Wall City, which has been torn down already, no longer there in Hong Kong. But it has become quite well known in comics or in video games and all that, and also in popular Hong Kong cinema. You always see these movies about triads on it. So in my research, when I try to think about aging issues and sexualities, of course, we know that a lot of people think about older people, they don't think about them having love and intimacy or having any kind of sex. They always think older people are asexual, right? And they always, when they see two women together, they might think of them as sisters, sisterly kind of love, right? There's very few studies on elder sexuality in Chinese societies, and there are very few studies on women, older women, especially older Chinese women in general, about their sexual kind of subjectivities, about their love stories, about their intimacy, right? So I found out that older Chinese women are not often included when we talk about elder kind of sexuality. And part of it, I think maybe, is because of confusion, emphasis, 孔子, on women's loyalty and obedience at home, which devalue position of women in society, just like what I think Makiko and Kayan talked about as well. In Japanese society, that women are always at a very subordinate kind of position. So similar, I think, in a lot of Chinese patriarchal kind of families, right? And of course, there's a lot of discrimination and stigmatization of LGBT seniors, 污名化. So there's a lot of disability, mental stress due to, different kind of healthcare systems they get, if they get any healthcare system we're talking about, right? So in comparison to older heterosexual adults, older LGBT adults are always much more lonelier, my third point here, and always, of course, twice as likely to live alone, right? So in Hong Kong, my former colleague and my PhD supervisor, Travis Kong, did a study of 14 gay men aged 60 and above to look at where they socialize and where they find each other. In Taiwan, of course, is Zhao Yingning, Antonia Chow, who did a lot of research on older tomboys, in Taiwan. So I wanted to look at, of course, other than aging issues among older lesbians, or the way they deal with their families, I also asked them questions about sex and intimacy. So when I looked at what the research has been done before, I've noticed that a lot of people highlight that for women is very different from gay men. Basically, for a lot of studies on lesbians over the age of 60, they show that emotional bonds are very important and sometimes valued more highly than sexual activity within relationships. And lesbian women compared to gay men, let's say, are less concerned about not having gay or lesbian specific groups for fun, for social recreation that way. But often when an older lesbian lose their partner, or when they face discrimination from healthcare providers, these are key concerns for older lesbians. And I think, of course, that they are also key concerns for gay men, older gay men as well. So I think in trying to talk about, these issues with older lesbians in my research, it's not easy to find them in the first place. It was very difficult to find local older lesbians and bisexual women in Hong Kong. I was very lucky to have two friends who helped me. Both of them are gatekeepers. I call them the gatekeepers because I am trying to interview friends around them, right? So I look for women who are age 60 or above, living in Hong Kong for an extended length of time, who have been in same-sex romantic kind of relationships. So I interviewed 12 women in Hong Kong and formally interview them. I know more of them informally without interview. So for the formal interviews, I interviewed 12 of them, and 5 out of 12 participants grew up in poverty, in poor families, and others are more middle class. The age range is around 60 to 76 years old for my participants. So when I first met them, they looked at me as a young, maybe as a slightly younger lesbian, right? So one of the things that really helped me to talk with them was I had knee surgeries. I had multiple knee surgeries. I have very, my knee is a mess, basically, as you can, I have to walk with a cane for a long time. So this became the bonding that I have with the older lesbians and bisexual women. Because then they will talk to me, we will talk about our health conditions, we'll talk about how to take better care of our knees. And I even went on one of the pro-democracy marches with one of the older lesbians here that you can see, when we can still talk about these issues and when we can still actually march in the city in those days. That was in 2019. So now, what was interesting that about my research is a lot of these women who I talked to went through Hong Kong, of course, some of the periods of Hong Kong. A lot of them, went through the 1966 and 1967 riots in Hong Kong, and most of them are in their late teens, most of them are already in their 17 or 18 years old, or during the 1966 and 1967 riots in Hong Kong. And that's the riots, that they remember. Some of them do remember this as well. It was influenced by the Cultural Revolution in China at that time. And the riots were mostly linked to labor disputes at factories, as well as a fare increase with transportation, right? And there were bombs everywhere in those days at that time, and 51 deaths resulted in those riots. So one of my participants remember those days. Afan, who is a 65-year-old retired immigration officer, talked to me about those times. She told me that it was very scary at that time in the late 1960s. There were bombs everywhere, but she felt very excited. So she still went out and played all the time with her friends, right? She told me that her family was very poor then, and they lived on an illegal structure on one of the buildings in Tohua Wan. She didn't go to a proper school. She remembered that the school that Afan attended was taught by a Buddhist nun on the top floor, probably also another illegal structure by today's standard, which is just a built-on structure on a building, right? Afan really remembered helping her family as a child peace worker, which means in those days is a lot of young children would get jobs from factories, that they are basically child workers, laborers, Then they would bring plastic flowers back home from the factory where they would put them together. 整啲膠花 in Cantonese we say. So it was very common for young women in her generation actually to place their hopes on trying to to climb up the social mobility ladder, through marriage. But Afan didn't get married. She resisted it. She said that as long as I have a job that feeds my siblings and parents, we can survive. I don't need a man. I also don't want a job that compromises the way I look. I want to wear pants. I want to have authority. I want to look handsome. And that's why she entered immigration services to become an officer. So for most working class informants that I talk to, they other than working full-time in, sometimes in factories and all that, at night, they would go to night schools, because they want to also learn new skills in night schools, right? So secretary training schools and night schools became very popular during, the 60s and 70s in Hong Kong. A lot of women finishing work from factories would then end up having their nighttime, spending time with other women in these secretary training schools and night schools, right? So what is very interesting for these schools, of course, is they are all mostly young women finish work during the day, and they are there to learn English or to learn how to type, so that they can become secretaries for foreign companies. If you know how to speak English in those days, it means you have much better salaries, right, and much better jobs, and you can dream of leaving the factory kind of work, right? These schools were great because they helped women to develop really strong friendships. Some of them remain friends as they get older. Some of them became partners, through these kind of friendships, right? Mei Ling, who is 66-year-old, talked about it. She said it was very tiring after a long day of work on the factory's assembly line, but I look forward to going to night school every time. It's wonderful to be around a group of women after work. Of course, I'm surrounded by women in the factories as well, but it's very different at the night schools. We are very giggly, very happy, and re-energized. So in this way, then these schools actually also have a kind of different purpose, as you can say, for that. And for this group of informants, they also went through the golden era of Hong Kong, which would be in the 80s, right? In the 80s, that's when Hong Kong's economy went up, just like the economy for Taiwan or Singapore, right? It's like it's how the economy really went up during that time. So another of my informants, Rachel, was born in 1954. She moved to Toronto for schooling in the early 70s with her family. She got married to a guy in a rock band at the age of 17 in 1973. The marriage lasted for 3 years, and then she came back to Hong Kong afterwards. She met her current partner at a dinner party in the late 1980s. She was 33 then. They have remained as a partner until now. So they've been together for more than 30 years now. Rachel first began working in the garment industry as a merchandiser. She later worked in the media industry. The late 70s and 80s were described by Rachel as the golden era of Hong Kong. And in her own words, she said, "I know I have reaped the economic benefits. In those days, we worked hard and played very hard. Weekends were relentless in terms of partying. Everybody wanted to be seen in discos. If you talk to anyone who were in the 80s gay scene, they must have been to disco, DD, or wanted to go there. It doesn't matter whether you're an expat or Chinese, straight or gay, single or married. It was the 80s, and life was good. You could see when happiness would end. And then for the next story that I want to say just a little bit about is from Joe, who talked about some of these other spaces that they used to hang out, when they were young. Joe was also born in 1953 to a family of 8. She was the youngest. She became aware of her same-sex desires by primary 3 or 4. I asked her where she used to hang out when she was young. She said she loved going to Victoria Park, right here. And also she loved to, swim in these open public swimming sheds, which you cannot find, very few of them exist anymore in Hong Kong. She told me that she could hide in the bushes, in public parks, drink beer underage, smoke, and all these kind of bad things she can do. I asked her one question. I said, how can people tell that you are a lesbian, in those days, She laughed and she said that it's just a feeling, Denise. It's a subtle smile. The way you look at each other, maybe it's about looking more androgynous also, or looking a little bit more tomboyish in those days, right? So it's kind of in some ways similar to the way we are now. We can argue for that. So I would want to end with some concluding kind of remarks, So most of the people I talked to actually came from big families. Like in the old days, it's very common to hear, being born into families of 6 and 8 or more, So for all the women I've talked to, being daughters and older sisters in the family came with responsibilities, especially when sons and younger brothers always had the choice, had the chance and opportunity to go into education. So for some of the women I talked to, their brothers could finish secondary school, or even if they ended up in university, which is a very big deal at that time in Hong Kong, the brothers would go first, the sons would go first. The daughters then would stop and quit school and work in a factory. That's very common. They're called the working daughters in those days, right? So during those days, actually, when I talked to a lot of the women now, they also talked about being a proper Chinese woman. So being a proper Chinese woman, meaning that, of course, you take care of your family as well, but they are at the same time conscious of their same-sex desires early on in their lives already. So one of the things to be very different, maybe in some ways, is to be economically independent, to work hard, and you can, of course, then play hard, and to be the first one, actually, to participate in the labor force. That was named as the first priority for most of the women I've talked to. So, and when I was doing this research, I kept thinking about this question, right? I don't want to show stories that nowadays we are more free, and in the old days they are more restricted in their lives. Because after hearing a lot of their stories, I don't think it's that simple. It's not that kind of black and white answer, or I don't want to use that kind of search and rescue kind of model that people sometimes talk about. But I actually then start to question, to think about, are we more free now? Or actually for some women that I've talked to, the way they talked about their love lives in the past wasn't actually that much more restricted. So it's the way we think about, I think, freedom in some ways, that makes me want to hear all these stories a bit more as well. So maybe I'll end here so that we can have more time for Q&A for all of us.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. It's really great. 非常精彩呢。Okay, so now we still have like 20 minutes. So yeah, as I know that this room platform will close like 10 minutes after 10:30. So it means that it will close at now we still have like 30 minutes. Okay, now we still have 30 minutes. So now we are open to the Q&A. So if you have any questions or like any thoughts or feedbacks, you are very welcome to type here. Or if you want to just use, I think because now we have some participants in this on this platform. So if you want to ask questions or feedbacks directly, you can just also talk to us. Okay, so now we have one question. Sorry, please. Okay. Sorry, wait a second. Cannot see the message. Okay, so we have Mark from Baha'i International Community United Nations Office. So he said that Joy Ling mentioned the need to improve understanding between older and younger generations of the LGBTQ community. So strengthening solidarity and collaboration between generations is much needed in the general society as well. So what lessons do you think the queer community might have that the wider society could learn from and about building these bonds between generations? Oh, okay. Okay, also he is a bass player, so respect to Makiko. Okay, so sorry, because we need some translation to Joy and wait for her feedbacks and answers. So we'll answer to Mark later, okay? And also I have some questions for, okay, so if all the participants, if you have, sorry, for the participant, if you have any questions, you can also just type here or just raise your hands. Okay, so now I have like some questions for the speakers. Okay, so first I want to ask Denise. So now, because this topic is about senior lesbians, and thank you all for your sharing. It's they are very important experiences, and I was also wondering that do you ever heard that any like experiences in the US or in Europe that are there any like best practice for like senior lesbians caregivings or like yeah, just like caregivings that's could be a reference for Asian. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah, do you want to answer first?
Sure. I can just say a few words. Of course, I've left Asian and Pacific Islander Wellness Center for a while now in San Francisco, but I'm sure I'm sure in Canada or in the US there are different cities which would have set up more support systems for older lesbians, and also I'm sure for older gay men as well. You know, and I know that in Toronto, for example, that they already have nursing homes. You know, 老人院, yeah, nursing homes already set up, you know, for older lesbians and gay men. But I always feel one nursing home is never enough. So it's about, but having one, that means that it can slowly then, you know, other cities might follow or other places might follow. You know, I somehow feel it's easier to do that in Canada than in the US. It's my from having worked in both countries, I think. Just because Canada has national health care, 健保, which I think is very important, especially when you get older. It's really healthcare is the issue, right? So I can see that getting much more support in Canada than in the US. And I mean, in Hong Kong, we talked about it before, me and among our friends, because some of the older lesbian, of course, became friends that we see all the time in the neighborhood. So actually right now where I live, actually there are a few older lesbians and a few younger lesbians, and we all live in the same area. And I feel we do take care of each other, you know, as neighbors. So we always say that we can start from here first and then later expand to other things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I have one question for Japan, and maybe it's just for purple hands. So, and Nakasu-san or Makiko and Kai, you can try to answer. So we are wondering that because we know that the work for purple hands is focused on the LGBT and aging, right? And when you do the work, do you find like anything which is like the most difficult to do? And also like because you provide a lot of services, so do you find that which are the most needed services for your community? And also we know that now there's still like stigma for LGBT in Japan. So is it hard for you to do this work in Japan? Okay.
高齢者は結婚してる人が多いので、なかなか情報が届かない。で、彼らセックスライフに関してはこっそりね、いろいろ活動するけど、ゲイとしての高齢期を送ろうとしていないので、ちょっとその辺がすれ違いというか、情報が伝わってないということかな。
Nagaya-san said that many elder gay men are married
with women.
It's a traditional family system. So the first difficulty might be information dissemination.
Sorry, Makiko, can you speak a little bit louder?
Okay. So Nagaya-san said that many elder gay men are in traditional family system. They're married. And so there will be a mismatch between giving services or what they want.
I see.
それだけど、その台湾の人がゲイのストーリーを書くときに高齢者の協力がね得られなかったのと同じ状態です。
It's a really similar situation with Taiwan. When you try to interview senior LGBTQ community, it was difficult to get a help or the network with the elder generation. That's a really similar situation in Japan.
I see.
The introductory part of the book was talking about how difficult to reach out.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it's similar. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we have one question from Shala Harris. So Shala said that in America, a lot of caregiving for aging lesbians is done by chosen family networks established in young adulthood around the beginning of the gay rights movement. So are there similar chosen family? Wait a second. Okay. Are there similar chosen family networks in Asian countries? Okay. Okay, so Denise or Makiko and Kain, do you want to answer this question? Or do you have answers? Okay. Yeah, you want to? Yeah, you can. So May first, okay?
Yeah, so Joy just shared with me like she heard about like gay in Taiwan, some gay couple, they start to, they become older and then they will find some community to live together. Maybe the idea is similar, but because we don't really have the example, but we heard that some gay men start to think about that and then they try to buy the same place in the same community. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Makiko and Kain, do you want to answer this question? You need to.
I
彼女たちとね、なかなか
don't have much knowledge
うん
about the throughout the Japan, but I used to live in a house with 4 women,
Mhm.
and we are not really senior or middle aged yet at the time, but we support each other in the family. Family, not family, but in the house.
Mhm. Okay, I see. Thank you. So you also have like similar experiences about this. Yeah. Okay. So how about Denise?
Sure. I think the women I talk to, I think they form friendships not really from participating in a gay rights movement in Hong Kong, because I think the movements, I think history of the movements are very different in Hong Kong than in the US. And also part of it is, I think a lot of the women, just like what I think Akira-san also talked about, are in families also. So it's, from what I understand, even for the older gay men, a lot of them are married, still in marriage. So it will be difficult for them to step out of that, role in that time. So I think where they do choose their own friends and they choose their own families, but it's always not driven by your own identity right away, I think. So it's more about something else. I think for women, for sure, even for a lot of older women I talked to, I didn't ask them if they identify as lesbian, because most of them would say, I identify as a woman first. And then maybe the word lesbian is too much of a label, I think. Yeah. So, but if I think about their lives now, if they're lucky to be able to become middle class in Hong Kong, then you can have your own place. Unlike Taiwan, I think it's easier to buy your place and live together,
No.
not anymore. It's so small,
Oh yeah. Compared to Hong Kong, it's easier, but it's not very easy for us actually.
So I guess it's similar kind of situation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Okay, so let's go back to the question raised by Mark. So Mark's question is about what lessons do Joy learn from our work about the transgenerational like activities that we can share with the wider society.
Yeah, and Joy said because the service is in the community. So for the community, they can start, for a younger generation, they can know about like what's the life they never think about. And that's very interesting to them. But also they can see their future. They can have more image about their future life. So that's for the younger generation. And for the elderly, they can have more energy, to spend, feel more energy.
Oh, energetic.
Because,
okay.
Yeah, because they can hang out with the younger generation. And to be honest, I think that we think the age is still like the different generation will really separate it right now. So we try to use the trip, or right now we also have the podcast to have more communication between those generations. So like last year we started the podcast about
So cute.
We started a podcast, and then we also focus on the different generation. Like we will choose one topic, and we will invite like elderly and the younger generation to talk about the same issue, and they can have exchange their experience, and that's what was very interesting. Like we had an issue about military and health. Yeah, like a military. So and the bar and the tea bar experience or clubbing experience, and that is a lot of fun. We will share our podcast link in the chat later. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can also share some because actually I was responsible for the Rainbow Bus service in Hotline for many years. So just the one-day tour. So actually, I think every time we will have a discussion after the one-day tour, and all the volunteers just learned a lot from these experiences because it's a really rare chance for like different generation to like communicate and like to share stories with each others. And we will also try to make it fun so that we can like listen to someone's stories, life stories in a game. So yeah, so every time it's a really rare like chance for different generations, different like gender, different like sexual orientation and gender identity to like interact and to communicate with each other. Yeah, so but still, I think we could have more events or more activities like this. So yeah, we can have more chances to share. Yeah. Okay. So we also have one. Okay, we have one message from Shaila. Okay, so Shaila say, thank you. I'm starting my research career, so I would be interested in hearing more about Danny's work and methods, theory, and the responses of the academic community, because work on queer community is usually not accepted in mainstream sociology and psychology in America. So Denise, do you want to have some feedback to her?
Sure. I'll say just a few words here because it's really about academic experience. I think it is very difficult to, I think, do queer research in Asia, actually, I think. So my experience of doing research before in Canada, where I spent a lot of my teenage and adult years there, was actually, it was more acceptable in Canada to do queer research compared to Hong Kong. And from what I understand in Japan as well, it's very difficult and also almost stigmatizing to do academic research on lesbians and gay men, especially in a very mainstream kind of way. So for me, of course, has always been, I have positioned myself as the lesbian researcher, and I think I lost one job because of that, but I found another job, so that's okay. And that's the way it is. You just have to keep on going at it. But I think as long as we all keep doing the work we do here, all of us, right, on this panel, keep doing the kind of work we do here, we will at some point, get accepted, or if not accepted, at least our voices will get heard, right? So I think we can't stop, just because it's not mainstream. Maybe it's not so good to be mainstream. It's very boring,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Denise. Okay. We also have Carola from Ecuador, and thank you for sharing your experiences. And I think it's around time now. Maybe we only have less than 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to raise some questions or have some feedbacks, just please just type in the discussion, like the chat bot. Yeah, and also if Denise and Makiko, Kain, Nagasa-san, and also like Joy, if you want something to share, like some thoughts after you hear each other's presentation, you can also think about it and maybe have some words to share. Yeah, sure, please. But your voice is a little bit small.
Oh yeah, Nagayasu-san says that he will start some kind of bus tour following your model once Corona is over.
Definitely.
レインボーカラオケ。はい、お願い。レインボーカラオケ。
Ah, that's good. Yeah, you know that for Taiwanese and for Japanese, we all like karaoke, right?
因为很好的 ideas，
Yeah.
good idea.
It's a really good way to communicate between different generations through songs. Yeah, so and music. Yeah, so we can also share about the story of the songs with karaoke. So it's a good idea. Yeah, and also we have Vasu from Phoenix, US. So Masu say that Masu is a Mexican Buddhist and gay. So Masu's husband is Muslim. So I appreciate all the experiences you share with us. Okay. Okay. And Mark said many thanks to everyone. Yeah. Okay. So I think the platform for Zoom is not that very easy to use. Okay. So now I think we are about time. So do you have some final words want to share to the audience? So Makiko and Kain. No voice. Okay.
Thank you very much for including us today. And yeah, it's really refreshing for me to really hear all these stories coming from Hong Kong. It's so familiar, but yet so far away in some ways. And also Taiwan. And yeah, it makes me really want to fly there right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
and Dennis?
Thank you,
Okay,
Xiao
thank you.
Dudu, for moderating, for being such a good moderator, solving all our problems.
I try my best. Thank you.
I hope we can all meet together in person, in the near future, for that.
Yeah.
And I really hope the situation, of course, facing Makiko and Kain get somehow resolved, or it might not be resolved, but some kind of hope there's a way to work it out. I think it's difficult. Yeah, visa situation is difficult. We've been through that as well, me and my partner. So it's been very difficult, as well. But since 2018 is easier. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. And how about Joy?
Actually, it's Joy's first time presentation in English, so that's a very huge thing for her. So,
yeah.
And we are so thankful for her works in hotline, and hope we can meet you soon. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for attending this panel, and also to share your thoughts and ideas and experiences. I think it's a very precious session for me, and I look forward that if we can have more chances to share these experiences on senior lesbians issues, it will be really great. Yeah, and also for one thing I need to mention that we want to thank that the Foundation of Women's Rights Promotion and Development in Taiwan. So they help us to have this bag and the lights, and also they help us to set up the YouTube channel. So Ming just share the link in the chat column, so you can find the YouTube channel. So this session actually it will be its live stream channel link, and also it will be saved on this link. So if you want to if you just step in in the middle, you can just welcome to use the link to learn more about what all the speakers are sharing. Okay, so I think the last thing that I want to share is that we know that now it's great that we can have a chance to share about senior lesbians' life and about LGBT issues. And we also know that, as Makiko and Kain say, that actually there are some places now is still under very serious situation. And we hope we can all just stay in solidarity. So let's just have this decision. Okay, we can have this position, just this signature for those people who cannot have this. Okay, so thank you everyone. Just hope you all enjoy this session like me. Okay, bye bye.